Welcome, all my Washington brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Washington fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. You heard me almost slip up there, right? It's a process, man. It's a process. But a couple of topics I wanted to chop up. I was just going to do a quick Alex Smith video initially, and then the NFLPA and the NFL have come to an agreement. All of these things happened yesterday, but I was out celebrating my birthday, and I just want to take the time to wish everybody or thank everybody for wishing me a happy birthday. You guys made it a tremendous birthday on Thursday night with the stream. My birthday was on Thursday. And so we celebrated it yesterday. We're going to continue to celebrate it today and throughout the weekend. And so I just want to tell everyone, thank you for all of the well wishes as I had a born day on Thursday. So with that being said, didn't get to the video yesterday. It was out and about and having a good time. But, you know, this is something I never thought I would say. That Alex Smith has been medically cleared to resume football activities. I never thought I would utter those words. Like, literally. The fact that we're having this conversation is just short of a miracle. Unbelievable. It's a medical miracle is what it is. I mean, after seeing the Project 11 and kind of having them chronicle what this guy went through, essentially, and how he easily could have lost not just his limb, but his life. And to see how far he's come and to put all of that into perspective and think that this guy could actually see the field again is ridiculous, but it's phenomenal on one hand, utterly ridiculous on the other hand that we're even having this conversation, because I've said this all along and I've stated this point, and we're going to get to some comments down the road if there are any. But I just couldn't see how he would want to risk anything coming back and playing. And you could say, look, you've never been at that level. You've never competed at that level, you know, and he's wired differently. When you talk to people, when you listen to people talk about Alex Smith, this guy is an alpha through and through. He's a fierce competitor and one of the hardest working guys that you'll ever meet. And, you know, watching Project 11 and then seeing where he is now in his recovery process, you kind of see that has bared itself out to be true. Like, you know, to get to where he is now, to have the doctors and all of his medical team pretty much look at the x-rays and the MRIs and say, hey, look, man, this thing looks pretty good. It's healed up really well. It's strong. You can go out and pretty much do anything you want to do on this thing and not fear that you're going to be back here again because something has gone wrong, unless something actually does go wrong. But, you know, you look good. You look fine, just like any other, you know, 34, 35-year-old man, you know. So that is amazing. But if I'm Alex Smith, do I really want to put my, you know, my future, my ability to enjoy life in jeopardy? And maybe he's not really doing that by coming back. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Who are we to say? I've stated this position. I don't want to see him on the football field for his own safety. And, you know, I can't be a hypocrite, because I've said all along with the Redskins name that I don't like people telling me how I should feel about something. And that's one of my biggest things. Don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel, you know. And, you know, right is right, wrong is wrong. There's one thing where it's opinion-based, and then there's another thing where right is right, wrong is wrong. And, you know, this is a situation where I can't tell that man that he can't go out and do the thing that he's done practically his entire life and that he loves doing. If he feels like he's healthy enough to do it, that's his right. You know, I would prefer to see him just gracefully bow out and say, hey, look, I've gotten back to the place that I wanted to get back to, which is, if I wanted to, I could play. But I don't want to risk this injury. I don't want to risk, you know, my future and being able to run around with my kids and do the things that, you know, normal people are able to do into their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I'm just going to gracefully bow out. But that's not how Alex Smith is wired, you know. And so it's amazing that we've gotten to this point. I didn't think we would actually get to this point. Now that we've actually gotten to this point where he's been medically cleared, do you actually think that there's a chance this guy could play? Because remember what we were saying. Hey, give him a ceremonial preseason start where he goes out, runs through the tunnel. Everybody gets to, oh, Alex, oh my God, standing over from both sidelines. He takes the first snap, don't hit him. All right, let him, treat him like, he's, and that's not what he wants. He wants to be treated like anybody else. Look, if I'm on the field, you're not going to take it easy on me. But, I'm like, hey, treat him like it's a bunch of, 12-year-olds and you're letting a 5-year-old play with you. Hey, don't hit him. Make him feel like he's doing something really big here. If he throws a pass, light the guy up that he throws it to, but don't hit him. But that's not happening. There's no preseason games this year. So you can't even do that. So my question now is, and I want to transition because we've gotten past the part of this is amazing. Oh my God, can't believe that Alex Smith actually has been medically cleared to resume football activities. Now you get to the point now where you start actually having this conversation. Hey, where is Alex Smith on the depth chart? Obviously, to me, I think it's obvious. You may not feel that way, and we'll have that discussion if you guys bring it up. But obviously, for me, Dwayne Haskins is number one on the depth chart. He's going to get the first crack at it, and he's going to get the opportunity to prove that he is, once and for all, the guy in Washington, and it's unquestioned, and he's the leader moving forward. I hope that he takes those reins by the horns and doesn't look back. I hope Dwayne silences all the critics this year, goes out, has a tremendous year, by his standards, and once and for all, we can put this to bed and stop all of the Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields talk and just move on and say, all right, we got our guy at the quarterback position, which is the most important position, and so now we can start to figure out what we need to do moving forward at other positions of need. Maybe left tackle is a need after this year. Maybe right tackle is a need after this year. Maybe we have to find a true number one corner after this season. Maybe we got to go out and find another safety. Sean Davis wasn't it. Whatever the case may be, we'll know a little bit more about this team after the season. I've already talked about that, but let's hope that quarterback is taken off the table, and that's not a need going into the 2021 draft. That being said, where's Alex Smith on the depth chart? Is he number two? Does Kyle Allen now get pushed back to number three? Are the Redskins even going to carry three quarterbacks on the roster this year? I think we all felt like they were going to carry three regardless. I don't even know if that's a real question or not, because I think Alex Smith was going, whether he was healthy, medically cleared or not, he was going to be on the roster. I don't see the Redskins parting ways with him. They feel like he's a great mentor, a guy that they wanted to have in that locker room to help with these young quarterbacks. And so I don't think Alex Smith was going anywhere anyway. But now when you take a look at this situation and you start kind of looking at Dwayne, because I've always said this, and I've had Carolina Panthers fans tell me this, Ron Rivera is loyal to veterans to a fault, all right? To a fault, to his detriment at times. So now when I hear that, I say to myself, because when he was asked the Alex Smith question, he could have easily shot it down and said, hey, look, Alex is he's doing everything that we asked him to do, and yada yada yada, but Dwayne's the guy. He's never come out and said Dwayne's the guy, and I get that. We've all talked about how Dwayne has to earn it. And Dwayne's done nothing but what he's been asked to do, and he's even exceeded that this offseason, in this very unique offseason, where he hasn't had a chance to really connect with the coaching staff on a physical level, where he can actually go out, perform in practice, sit down, take a look at what he did right, what he did wrong. All he can do is wow them from a mental standpoint, and by all accounts, he's done that. We've seen him get into the best shape potentially of his life. He looks amazing. When you see Dwayne, I saw a picture of him coming to the facility to take his COVID test, and he was shaking Ron Rivera's hand. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape. And so Dwayne's done everything that he's been asked to do and exceeded that. Now it's all about what can you do on the field when these things actually count. I think Dwayne's going to get the first opportunity, but is Alex your second quarterback? Does Alex leapfrog Kyle Allen, who the Redskins traded a 5th-round pick for, only on a 1-year deal? He's only got 1 year left on his contract. So is Alex Smith your number 2 quarterback, or is he still number 3? And keep in mind, Kyle Allen knows this offense better than both Alex Smith and Dwayne Haskins. So I think Kyle is still number 2, but it wouldn't shock me if we got to late August, we see the depth chart for the first time, and Kyle Smith is your 3rd quarterback. Kyle Allen is your 3rd quarterback on the depth chart. That wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me in the least bit, but I'm still kind of lukewarm to the idea of Alex Smith actually going out on the football field. I don't know how to feel about that. And we're not really going to get a chance to see it because, again, there are no preseason games. So we're not going to be able to gauge where he is in this process. And I'm hoping that Dwayne is healthy this year and that we don't have to worry about Dwayne leaving ball games early. Even if he ultimately comes back, let's hope that, Dwayne is able to stay relatively healthy this year because that wasn't something he was able to do last year. Okay, last year he dealt with some injuries, including an injury that put him down, and maybe he could have come back had the Redskins been playing for something meaningful. But, that injury cost him the final 6 quarters of the season, the rest of the Giants game and all of that Cowboys game in Week 17. So at the end of the day, we saw him get injured versus Green Bay. He ultimately came back, but we saw Dwayne get banged up last year. Can he stay healthy? And if he doesn't stay healthy, who's the next man up? Who's the first guy to get a crack to go into the football game? Is that going to actually be Alex Smith? That's mind-boggling for me at this point, that Alex Smith could actually be in an NFL game 2 years after having that catastrophic injury that we thought was a career ender. Unbelievable that could actually take place. I'm hoping that it doesn't. I've said this before. I'm not going to change my stance. I do not. And again, that's not my decision to make. As I've stated before, I'm just telling you my personal preference. I would prefer if Alex Smith never played in a competitive football game again. Professional tackle football game competitively again. And again, that's for his sake. But again, if he feels like he can do it, who am I to tell him he can't? So I wanted to state that. I wanted to get that out of the way. And then I wanted to talk about, this is kind of piggybacking off of Thursday's show and the title of the show. It's happening. Remember, I told you I was getting excited. All right. Fresh blades of grass outside, freshly cut grass. I smell it. My body starts to itch. I start getting those cravings. I told you, I am a NFL football junkie. I got to have it. I need it shot into my veins every August. All right. August is vastly approaching. Once my birthday gets here, I know it's that time. Hall of Fame game should be right around the corner. And I know the Hall of Fame game is trash, but I need it. Well, I'm not getting it this year. I'm starting to Jones. I'm starting to itch. And I was a little worried because I hadn't seen the Redskins rookies sign their deals. And I talked about it on Thursday. They have now signed their deals. All the rookies have been signed. So that's taken care of. I said, I'm starting to feel like this season is becoming a reality, but I said, look, NFLPA and the NFL both have to come together and figure out a way to make everything work. Safety protocols, financial situation moving forward. How does this all come together? They were getting close, but they hadn't reached an agreement yet. So there wasn't actually football that we could talk about. We could fantasize about it, but we couldn't actually say, gonna have a season. They're gonna give it a run. All right. Now we can, NFLPA, NFL, agree on terms, safety protocol, on the financial ramifications of this season, with ticket sales obviously being very, very low for every team around the league. Most teams are like, look, we're going to be at about 30% capacity if we're letting fans in. That's going to affect the bottom line, obviously, but Where the real money is in this league is TV money. That's why they want to make sure they play these games and they're on TV for 16 or 17 weeks, because that's where the real money is. That's the revenue sharing that goes around this league that all 32 teams split evenly amongst each other. It's the TV money that matters most. Yeah, they're going to lose some money from ticket sales and concession and parking and all of those things, but at the end of the day, they're going to spread that out over a number of years. Everything's fine. They have agreed to have a 2020 NFL season. We have liftoff, folks. I couldn't be more ecstatic about it because, as I told you before, I always felt like we would get to this point. At times, in my mind, I kind of waffled back and forth, but I always felt like we would get to the point where we would start. And you got to feel like we're getting to some level of normalcy, okay? MLB just kicked off their season on Thursday. Or was it Wednesday? I think it was Thursday that the MLB kicked off their season. NBA playing preseason games. They're playing exhibition games, and they're going to start their season next Thursday. So you're going to have MLB playing ball. You're going to have the NBA playing ball, and eventually the NFL is going to get into the fray and play some ball. And so you're starting to get back to some sliver of normalcy. It's not the same, obviously, but hey, we got sports on television, and I feel like this thing is trending in the right direction. Now, I've said this as well, and I'm not backing off of this. I do not think we're going to get through this entire season. I find it hard to believe that once flu season hits and people start getting the flu, they're not going to know if it's COVID or if it's just the flu, whatever the case may be. If you've got a temperature, they're not going to want you to play. And so I think we're going to get to a point where this thing may get out of control during those colder months. Once we hit October into November, I hope I'm wrong. I really, really do. But I think we'll probably get at least 8, maybe 9 games in, and then we might have to have some kind of shutdown temporarily or maybe permanently for the remainder of the season, whatever the case may be. I just know this. We're going to get football initially. They're going to get this thing off the ground, and I couldn't be more elated by that news. And I think you guys share probably a lot of the same sentiments as I do, that you're really excited about the potential for this season to get underway. We've talked so much this offseason about, this roster and Ron Rivera and Kyle Smith, and all of the people that we feel like have their thumbprint on this roster moving forward, and how we are so excited to see what Jack Del Rio would do with this defense, what Chase Young will look like, what Terry McLaurin in year 2 looks like, what Dwayne Haskins finally being anointed the starter in year 2, but year 1 of Scott Turner's offense, what that looks like, what he looks like in that offense, what Scott Turner being an offensive coordinator looks like. Antonio Gibson, what are they going to do with him? And, Steven Sims, how does he look in year 2 and really having a defined role, and they want to get him involved. And so how does all these pieces come together? What about the running back position and offensive line? We were so excited. We've talked about so many different things. What is this guy going to look like on defense? How are they going to do the backers, and how are they going to divvy up the snaps? What are they going to do with Ryan Anderson? He's in a contract year. Like, we've talked so much about so many things and so excited about this season, even though I still think we're going to be 6-10, 7-9, at best, but you're still excited. I told you, every year I get chills and I get excited when I see the fellas on the tube for the first time. And usually that's in the preseason. And it doesn't matter that it's only going to be for 5 or 6 snaps or whatever the case may be. I just get excited to see burgundy and gold football on my television screen. And so to know that I'm going to get that again this year, sometimes we take things for granted because you just expect to have football every year. It's ingrained in us. It's a part of our culture. It's what we do. We watch football in the fall. And to know that this was in jeopardy, I'm not going to lie to you, pretty damn scary. So to know that we're going to get it and we're going to get to see all of these things that we've been talking about, it's so refreshing to know that all of this talk that we have isn't going to go in vain. We're actually going to see Washington football team football. Okay, we're actually going to see these guys perform, and we're going to find out if they can get it done or if they can't, and what guys are the right mix moving forward and which guys we can leave by the wayside and look to replace them and upgrade specific positions. So, man, I'm just excited. It's actually happening, okay? As I talked about Thursday, it's happening. We're going to get football. And that's, that feels so good to say. Anyhow, got some super chats. I want to get to those before we get out of here. And I want to thank you guys for joining me, too. I know it's Saturday. You got shit to do. And I'm jumping on here live, impromptu. And I really appreciate you guys jumping on with me and chopping it up with me, talking Washington football team football. Hey, HTTWFT. Hey. So I appreciate y'all jumping up here and then chopping it up with me on a Saturday. Let's get through some of these super chats. Got a super chat from Sonny Rawson to kick it off. Thank you for the super chat, Sonny Rawson. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much, Sonny Rawson, for the super chat. Sonny writes, "Hey Lou, happy belated. Appreciate that. Assuming all goes well with his recovery, I feel like the roster is pretty similar to what we went 6-3 with Smith. Do you see any friction with him possibly pushing to play?" And that's really the big question, and that's kind of what I alluded to. Alex Smith in his career hasn't really been a backup. And look, he's a gracious guy. He's very humble, but he's a competitor. And so you can be really humble and all that stuff, but you want to play. You're a competitor. And if he feels like he's healthy enough, he doesn't want to stand on the sideline holding a clipboard or wearing a headset. That's not what he's here to do if he feels like he can contribute on the field. That being said, I think he understands the dynamic, that, look, I was out for, what amounts to 2 seasons, essentially, or a year and a half. They've had to do things in that time period because of my injury to, circumvent my injury. And they brought in a young guy. He's the future at the position, obviously. And so my job is to be ready in case of an emergency, but also help him become the best quarterback that he can be, similar to what he did with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Now, a lot different in Kansas City, different circumstances. He was never the backup in Kansas City. He helped Patrick Mahomes learn while he was still the starter. So it's not like, hey, I've got to take a back seat. I understand that Mahomes is the future. He's playing. I'm here to help him and support him in any way I can. That wasn't the case in Kansas City. Alex Smith was still the starter, but he was mentoring Patrick Mahomes while he was still starting. That's not the case here initially, and we're hoping permanently that's not the case here, that Dwayne goes in and shows everybody right out of the gates, this is my team, this is what I was brought here to do, and I'm the guy, and then Alex can then help him every step of the way from that point forward. But if there's any doubts that is allowed to creep into the coaching staff, that Dwayne isn't getting it, or he's slow to process some things, he isn't maximizing the opportunities on the football field, and this team is losing games because of it. That's the big thing, because if we're just not very good on defense, offense, and Dwayne is the least of our problems, then you don't bench Dwayne because of that. But if you're in ball games and the inability of this offense to put up points, and you go back and watch the film, and Dwayne is the reason why this offense isn't scoring more points, then that's when you start looking at the position and saying, maybe we need to make a change, and maybe Alex Smith is the guy that ultimately is thrusted into the fray. So, I don't think, to your point, I don't think that there'll be any friction for Alex to play. I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to make noise and make a scene if he's not getting an opportunity to play. I don't see Alex Smith being that type of guy. Obviously, he wants to play. If he feels like he's healthy enough to play and he feels like he's back to where he was prior to the injury, then he's going to want to play. He's a competitor. But I don't think he's going to be like Adrian Peterson was back in 2018 when he was with the Saints and he wasn't getting any run, and he was stalking Sean Payton on the sidelines, balking at him, telling him he needed some reps. So I don't think that's going to be what you get from Alex Smith. But as far as this roster being similar to when we were 6-3, hard for me to say that this roster is any better than we were when we were 6-3. But I mean, when you think about, that team that was 6-3, that we were fool's gold that year. And I think most of you understand that. I mean, some of you don't. Some of you felt like if Alex Smith would have stayed healthy, we would have won 10 games and won the division. And maybe that would have happened. I don't think that was going to happen. I don't think we would have finished the season the way that we did at 7-9. I think we would have been 8-8, possibly 9-7 had Alex Smith. There were games there that I thought were winnable had Alex Smith been our quarterback. Obviously, that Titans game that we lost, very winnable football game. Hell, we probably should have won that game. I forgot the name of the receiver that we had on the roster. I think it was Michael Floyd. If his ass could catch, we probably win that football game, but that's nor here nor there. I don't know if this roster is any worse than that, because that wasn't a good roster. When you look back at that 6-3 team from 2018, you look back at that roster, we weren't very good that year either. Like, you went out, you signed Paul Richardson. He got hurt midway through the season, so he wasn't really. When was Paul Richardson ever really available in his short time here as a Washington Redskin? So, I mean, think about how we finished that season off with Michael Floyd at wide receiver. Like, think about that for a second. We were so banged up and diminished that even if Alex Smith had stayed healthy, I don't really think we were going to do anything major that year. We were so banged up. So, when I look back at that roster, DJ Swearinger, you swap him out for Landon Collins. I think that's an upgrade. I felt like Monte Nicholson was a much better player back in 2018, than maybe Sean Davis is coming in going to be for us in 2020. I don't know. It's hard to really say. We were still high on Josh Norman back in 2018. We don't even know if we have a number one corner on the team right now as we sit here in 2020. The linebacker position, the front seven, we think is a massive upgrade just from a coaching standpoint, just from a talent standpoint, and a scheme from a schematics standpoint. So I think you could say it's an upgrade there. You look on the offensive side of the football, we had Trent Williams back in 2018. So obviously left tackle, the offensive line in general was much better back in 2018, if you ask me. Obviously the talent at the running back position, man, I guess you could say that it's a wash because we still really don't know. Let's be honest with ourselves. We still don't really know what we have at the running back position. Think about that for a second, because Geis is a wild card. He hasn't stayed healthy. You can't count on him for 16 games. Hell, you can't even count on him for 8 games right now. Hell, you can't even count on him for 4 games right now. So you don't know what you're getting from him. You don't know what you're getting out of J.D. McKissick. You don't know what you're getting out of Antonio Gibson and how they're going to utilize him. You don't know if Bryce Love is even medically cleared to play football or not. And you look at Adrian Peterson and say, he's the only known commodity in the backfield right now. So really the running back position is a big question mark. So it's hard to say, running back's better. Wide receiver, obviously, I don't think you could get any worse than what we were in that time frame. Like 2018, we weren't very good at receiver. And really, we haven't fully recovered. We never fully recovered from the offseason of 2016, if you really want to be frank. We really never recovered from Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon leaving this football team in that offseason of 2016. Because we haven't really ever replaced those guys. We think we've replaced one of them now with Terry, but we still need that chain mover, that possession receiver. We thought Kelvin Harmon might be that guy. Maybe Antonio Gandy-Golden is that guy for us. We'll see. But, Jamison Crowder was solid. We think we've replaced him with Steven Sims. We'll see. But we need that chain mover. We need that guy that moves the sticks. And we're hoping Antonio Gandy-Golden is that guy, the Gandhi man. And also a big-time threat in the red zone. We're hoping he's a guy that at the 7-yard line, they can just throw a back shoulder fade to, or he can run a slant, use his frame to shield off the defender and catch the football. We're looking for someone to help us cash in the red zone, and we're hoping that guy is AGG. If we get that, then the receiver position, I think it would be actually much improved from 2018. I actually go on record as saying I feel like the receiver position is better now than it was in 2018. But that's me going out on a limb because I have no empirical proof that this this roster, or the receiver position for that matter, is any better than it was in 2018. But I feel like you're probably right. At the end of the day, it's probably comparable. That 2018 roster probably very comparable to the one we have now. I think we're more talented now, but we don't know if they're going to produce or not. And that's the big question mark. You know, there's some places that you can point to and say, no, we were definitely more talented there in 2018 than in 2020. Obviously, you start on the offensive line. I think that's where you start when you start talking about, hey, we were more talented then than now. But that's probably the only position. Maybe cornerback. Maybe the secondary was a little bit better, or perceived to be a little bit better back in 2018 than it is right now. But and tight end, obviously, you know, you got Jordan Reed, you got Vernon Davis in 2018. That goes without saying. Neither one of them could block, but that we at least we had a pass catching threat. We're not sure if we even have one of those on the roster right now. So at the end of the day, I think that we've got a bunch of question marks on the roster, but I'd venture to say that this roster is probably a lot more talented than it was in 2018. I shouldn't say that. It's probably a little bit more talented than it was in 2018. So, yeah, it's a comparable roster, but remember, that team was fool's gold because we were playing some bad football teams and we took advantage of it, and we were winning games and it wasn't pretty. And when we played anybody with any kind of talent, like Atlanta, who wasn't very good in 2018, if you remember. They came into our house and stomped a mud hole in us. Anytime we played anybody with any kind of offensive firepower, we got smashed, a la the Saints when Drew Brees broke the record, and it was Drew Brees porn night on ESPN on Monday Night Football. So anytime we saw anybody with any kind of talent offensively, we got smoked in 2018. Let's hope that that isn't the case in 2020. So thank you for the super chat, Sonny Rawson. Greatly appreciate you. As we move on to the next super chat, got another one here. This one is from Brian Haynes. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Brian Haynes. My man Brian writes, as much as I am happy to have Alex Smith being healthy, I just see him being on the sideline mentoring Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen. Now, if Dwayne and Kyle go down, knock on wood, and I'll go ahead and provide that knock for you, Alex Smith would be the last option to put in. You're probably right. And I hope you're right. I feel like, and this is kind of the message that Rivera has been, you know, kind of pushing out to us this entire offseason. Now, I told you he's a guy that you usually just take him on face value. And Ron hasn't lied to us yet. And from all reports, from everyone out there that has spoken to Ron in the past that knows him, they're like, look, this is a straightforward guy. He's pretty much going to wear his emotions on his sleeve. He's going to tell you how he feels. And so you don't have to ever really guess with Ron Rivera. You're going to know how he feels because he's going to tell you. And Ron has said all offseason, kind of really want to see what the young boys are doing. You know, kind of want to see what they've got for us because they're the future. We're not a veteran team. Really, and we're not looking to necessarily look. They want to win ball games right away. If they could go 10-6 in year one of Ron Rivera, that's what they're looking to do. They're not conceding the season like some fans out there. I'm not conceding the season. I just don't think we're going to be very good. They're going to go out and bust their ass and try to win games. It's just not going to be good enough to win some games. But at the end of the day, I think they understand that this is a process. And Rivera has said, look, not only is coming in and changing the culture going to be a process and priority number one, but this entire organization is a process. And I'm going to come in and try to build this thing up the right way. And that includes the roster and building it with young football players and trying to figure out what we have. The only way you do that is by playing the young boys. You know, you keep putting in veterans and you keep pushing and repressing the young boys. How the hell do you know what they can do if you don't give them a chance to play? So I think you're absolutely 100% spot on that in an ideal situation, Alex Smith shouldn't be doing anything but mentoring Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Smith. Or Kyle Allen, excuse me. That's what he should be doing. All right. But, you know, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and I've talked about in the past, and I told you Carolina Panthers fans have told me this, you know, Ron Rivera can be a little bit, you know, forward leaning towards the veterans, you know, and again, he can be a little bit deferential to veterans to a fault. And so We'll see what happens. But if this is done the right way, and I think it will be, he'll be number 3 on the depth chart. And as you mentioned, if something were to happen to Dwayne, knock on wood, Kyle Allen, I've got to stop calling him Kyle Smith. Kyle Allen should be the next guy in. That should be how this goes. Because, as I mentioned, Kyle Allen is on a 1-year deal, all right? So you need to find out if this guy is a credible backup quarterback for you moving forward. And I think they know what Kyle Allen is, and they feel confident that this is a guy they'll probably want back moving forward. But I look at this football team and the direction that they're going, and it's a young man movement. That's how I perceive this to be, and that includes Alex Smith potentially just being a mentor moving forward. So I like you, think that he should be nothing more than a mentor on the sidelines for these guys, in the film room, in the weight room, showing these guys how to work. That should be his role, and he's done that to an extent already. Remember, he was around the team last year to a degree. So I think he's done that a bit already, but I look forward to him potentially doing that more, as you mentioned, and as you said, I couldn't be more happy for Alex Smith, man. I'm glad to hear that he's 100% healthy and physically able to resume football activities. Like I said, never thought I would actually say that. So, I like you. I'm really happy for him, but I don't think he should be playing if it were up to me. So thank you for the super chat, Brian Haynes. Greatly appreciate you. My man B.D. Barrett Downing, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Barrett Downing. Thank you for the super chat. My man B.D. writes, "Hey, Lou, I get that he wants to play, but I feel like he's messing with his livelihood. Retire and don't risk it. HTT question mark." Again, who are we to tell him what to do? I feel like you do. Why are we even having this discussion? You've made a ton of money. You've got to play out your dreams. You've played in this league for a very long time. You've won a bunch of ball games. Never quite ever got to the apex, but you're not going to do that in 2020 or 2021, more likely than not, with this with this Washington football team. So what difference does it make? No reason for you to risk your livelihood or risk quality of life moving forward. And again, he may not actually be risking any of those things. We're no doctors here. I did sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but we're no doctors here. We don't know. He could go out there and nothing happen. Like, he could be perfectly fine. But it's just hard for us to erase the images of this guy, his leg bending in a way that your leg is not supposed to bend. Him writhing in pain on the ground. Seeing his bone poking out of his skin. We all remember this. Watching that Texans game. All right, watching Project 11 and seeing what this guy went through and knowing that he almost lost his life. Knowing that they had to take a graft and pieces of bones from other parts of his body just to repair his leg. All right, limb salvage surgery is what it was called. Limb salvage surgery is what it was called. Like, you shouldn't be playing football after you had limb salvage surgery, okay? Like, that's how I process all of this. But again, I'm not Alex Smith, all right? I'm not the guy who has played and spent half of his life playing football. The vast majority of his life playing football. I'm not the guy who has played at a high level for over a decade, who has this ingrained in him and wants to continue doing the thing that has brought you so much joy throughout your life. I'm not him, and I can't tell him that he can't continue to do the thing that has really made him who he is. But as a fan and as a guy who wants to see you have a great quality of life, I would just say why. But he'll tell you very quickly, because I want to. That's good enough, and if he feels like the risk is worth it, by all means, knock yourself out. I just feel like if everything goes the way that it's supposed to, he'll never get a chance to play anyway. And that's the way I would prefer it. You know, he comes back. He's put himself in a position to play. But hey, we got that position already locked up. Got a guy here that's playing at a high level, and we don't really need you to see the field. But we love your presence here, and we ask that you continue to mentor and lead these guys. You know, in the locker room and on the sidelines. So we'll see what happens. But I like you. He doesn't necessarily have to retire. You know, if you can still get a check, why not? You know, but I don't need to see him on the field. But, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, I think we're a long way from him getting onto the field. As my man Brian Haynes said, that he's probably more likely than not third on the depth chart. You know, and something would have to both happen to both Dwayne and Kyle for him to, and we'll just knock on a little bit of wood again, for him to even be remotely considered to be put into the game. But again, we don't know what Ron Rivera is thinking and how he feels about Alex Smith. And if Alex Smith looks good, who knows where he ends up on the depth chart. I don't think he ends up number one, but there's a real possibility he could end up number two on the depth chart. And as we saw last year, Dwayne's a sprained ankle away from leaving the game for a quarter or two, as we saw in the Green Bay game. Or Dwayne's a rolled up ankle away from being out for 2 weeks. That could easily be Alex Smith, number 11, back into the game. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Thank you for the super chat, Barrett Downing. Got another super chat from Sonny Rawson. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Sonny Rawson. Greatly appreciate you, Sonny. My man Sonny writes, so excited the season actually feels real and not like a myth. Gonna be a great season to evaluate what we have and build off of it for 2021. I couldn't agree with you more. That is a very apt and very succinct super chat. I mean, it's straight to the point, says everything, and encapsulates everything that I've pretty much been saying all along. Like, I've been shooting down people all off season that have been telling me, why do you even care? Why are you even doing this? We're not even having a season. And to those people, I would just continue to say, you're wrong. We're going to have a season. Because first of all, I was in denial. Because at the time that those comments were being made to me, they were more right than I was. Okay. We were right smack dab in the midst of a pandemic, and sports seemed like something more like an afterthought. Like, why are we talking about sports right now? Weren't playing it. Didn't seem like it was going to be played anytime soon. I didn't want to hear it. And I told you, I'm more of an optimist anyway. I look at the glass always being half full rather than it being half empty. And so I was shooting down those naysayers all season long, and they were coming in droves. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I knew that there was some validity to what they were saying. Like, there's a chance we might not get football this year. And that was a hard thing for me to accept. And as we got into July and, you know, we started seeing the reopening of the country and all of these cases going up and skyrocketing, I was like, man, this is not looking good at all. But the saving grace always was for me, all right, let's see what Major League Baseball and the NBA do. If they're able to successfully get their seasons off the ground and have these things go off without a hitch or maybe a hiccup here or there, but, you know, for the most part, it's successful. There's no way the NFL is going to allow this money to pass them by. It's just, that's how this country works. That's how these things work. Money drives everything. Too much money to be made for them not to at least give it a go. And so, you know, the next big step was, hey, okay, how are they going to figure out a way to come together? Major League Baseball couldn't do it. That's why it took them so long to get onto the field. Couldn't figure out a way to make the economics work. In the NFL, more so than the NBA and the MLB, you got to figure out, these guys are in close proximity. On the baseball field, look, you don't have to be in close proximity to anybody. You can wear your mask in the dugout if you need to. There are ways that they can keep themselves safe in baseball. They should have been playing baseball a long time ago. In terms of the NBA, they've put them in a bubble. Like, they're literally in a secluded area where they can just play basketball. You can't do that in the NFL. You can't pick a city and say, all right, everybody's going to play their games here and everybody's going to stay in this bubble. You can't do that. So they had to put in safety protocols. They had to take some measures. Money has to be reallocated through the cap in years to come. There's a lot of things that had to be agreed upon, and they figured it out. And so now, knowing that we're going to get a 2020 season, man, am I exhilarated? I am so exhilarated. Like, I can't begin to tell you how good this feels. And not only because we're getting a season, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're getting back to a level of normalcy, but I was so anxious to see this team in particular because there are no expectations for this team. Everyone thinks we're going to stink and be one of the worst teams in the league. Every time you look at some kind of way too early draft projection for next year, we're in the top 3. You know, I haven't seen one yet where we're not picking first, second, or third. You know, I haven't seen one yet. If you've seen one, I'd like to see it because I haven't seen one where we're not picking in the top 3. All right. So everyone, that is an indication everyone thinks we're going to stink. Vegas thinks we're going to be garbage. Everyone thinks that we're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and I think they're wrong because we were one of the worst teams in the league last year. That's how we got the second pick in the draft. Look at where we are from last year to now and tell me that this coaching staff, this roster isn't good enough for at least an additional 3 victories that gets you to 6. 6 doesn't put you in the top 3. 6 doesn't put you in the top 5. 6 may have you drafting in the top 10, but more likely than not, if you get to 6 or 7 wins, you're probably right around 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I feel like there's no way we're going to be as bad as everyone thinks. And as Sonny has laid out so eloquently, we're going to get to find out what this roster is capable of. Who are the guys that are going to ride moving forward? And what are the positions we need to attack? We got a ton of cap space. What positions do we need to address in the offseason via the draft that's going to continue the momentum that we've built from the 2020 season and carry that through on into 2021, where I feel like the expectations for this team, if things go well in 2020, are going to be through the roof, at least for me. If Dwayne, and really all I need to see is this defense be vastly improved and Dwayne Haskins play well. If Dwayne plays well, I feel like and the defense is a lot better, I feel like you can build everything else around those two components. And if you tell me right now that the Redskins will be 6-10 this season, and I know some of you are like, Louis T, you're out of your damn mind. Hear me out. If the Redskins if you gave me a contract, you slid this in front of me right now, and you said, hey, take it or leave it, deal or no deal. All right. You slid a contract in front of me and I read the contract and essentially this is what the contract said. The Redskins are going to go 6-10. There's no negotiating this. There's no wiggle room. You can't win an additional game or 2, even if the playoffs are right there in front of you. And 8-8 is good enough to win your division. You're 6-10, buddy. All right. But if you're 6-10, Dwayne Haskins is going to solidify himself as a franchise quarterback, and the defense is going to be really good. And you see the makings of a defense that could lead this team to a Super Bowl. That's how good it looks. It's a la Jacksonville. Remember when Jacksonville, we saw the defense. They weren't any good, but we said, man, that Jacksonville defense, man, that shit is funky. Woo, they nasty over there. All right, now, Blake Bortles and the rest of that offense stinks. But that defense, if they ever had any offense, they could be lethal. And then what happened? All the way to the AFC Championship game. So if you tell me those two components will be in place, Chase Young is the real deal. Montez Sweat, real deal. Matt Ioannidis, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Cole Holcomb, all of these guys, ballers. And you telling me, all right, defense looks legit, man. Yeah, you got a couple of pieces that you need to upgrade, secondary, safety, another corner or 2. But, man, this defense is legit. And so is Dwayne Haskins. Going to go 6-10 this year, but that shit is in place. I would sign that right now. Where do I need to sign? Give me the contract. I'll sign it now. Because that tells me that with a couple of pieces in the draft, a couple pieces in free agency, we're ready to go 10-6, 17 games next year. So you're telling me that we're ready to go 11-6, 12-5 next year in 2021. You're telling me you're ready to take that next step, potentially win the division, if not win the division, get one of those wild cards, and you're ready to go play some ball. So I can't speak for you guys, but I know that if we solidify those two things, I feel like this was a mission accomplished in 2020. And the fact that we're going to officially get to see that take place, I'm really, really excited about that, as you are, Sonny Rawson. Thank you for the super chat. Got another super chat. This one from Rob U, my guy Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U, who writes, "What up, Lou? Happy belated B-Day." Thank you. Appreciate that. To you, champ. He says, "Happy for Alex Smith, but please tell me we are all in on Dwayne Haskins, and this means nothing moving ahead." That sounds about right. Barring some kind of catastrophe with Dwayne, physically or mentally, where he's just not getting it, and we'll just go ahead and knock on some wood. Obviously, the offensive line, yeah, there are some concerns there, especially on that left side, that you got to solidify. But, if he's kept upright, if Dwayne's allowed to do the things that we know he's capable of doing, I don't think this is of any consequence, in terms of Dwayne. He's going to be fine. There isn't a quarterback controversy here. I think that Dwayne Haskins, this is his job, to lose. And whereas in the case of Sadiq Charles, it's his job to win. They're not giving it to him. It's his job to win. But it's available for anybody. But Sadiq's going to get the first opportunity, first crack to win it. It's his job to win. In the case of the quarterback position, it's Dwayne's job to lose, meaning it's already his job. He's got to go out and fumble it away, all right, for someone else to get an opportunity. So this means nothing. Alex Smith being healthy in terms of what it means right now for the depth chart or any kind of questioning of the quarterback position means nothing. He's not pushing Dwayne. No one on this roster right now is pushing Dwayne Haskins to start. That's my perception of things. I can't speak for any of you out there. I can't speak for this coaching staff. My perception of the way the offseason has been handled, this is Dwayne Haskins' job. They're going to find out if, in fact, 2021's first round pick needs to be spent on a quarterback or not. That's what I think they're looking to evaluate this year. And I don't honestly know if that's fair or not, to be brutally honest with you. I don't even know if that's fair because I don't know. I'm from the school. I'm from an old school where Alex Smith is a testament to this. Like he's the greatest prime example of this. Probably the last one that we've had where a guy didn't blossom his first 4 or 5 years in the league. Like literally Alex Smith was on the last year of his rookie deal when he finally started to win, when he got Jim Harbaugh in there. And started to win. Alex Smith was horrible early in his career. He looked like a bust. The 49ers kept trotting him out there, though. That's what you're supposed to do with a quarterback on a rookie deal. Give him every opportunity to prove that he can get it done. But now we're in this microwavable society. Now that, everybody wants it now. They want it now. Put it in the microwave, heat it up, let's go. If it doesn't heat up and it doesn't taste good, let's get another meal and see if that one's tasty. Like, goddamn, can we at least get a couple forkfuls and see if this thing actually is good? Maybe it tastes better if you let it settle a little bit. Like, Drew Brees wasn't good initially. That's why they drafted Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees, like everybody forgets that Drew Brees wasn't very good early. Go look at his numbers. He had years where he threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns. Like year 3 of Drew Brees in San Diego, he had like 17 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. Yes, Hall of Fame Drew Brees did that. In his 3rd year, like he wasn't very good early on. That's why they drafted Phillip Rivers. It wasn't until Phillip Rivers came along that Drew Brees finally had the light bulb go off. And all of a sudden, he was like playing at a high level. And they had to make a decision. Well, they said, look, we drafted Phillip Rivers. We're going to play the young fella. So, and you messed your shoulder up. So it makes our decision a lot easier. But we don't do that anymore. That's not what we do anymore. If a guy doesn't prove to you in 2 years that he's good, you're ready to wash your hands clean of him. Like Mitchell Trubisky could play his ass off this year. It wouldn't surprise me. But he's got to get an opportunity to do that. And everybody wants to just whisk Mitchell Trubisky out of here and say he's trash. He wasn't trash when he led the Bears to a 10-6 record and won the division 2 years ago. But all of a sudden, he can't play now. He had a rough year last year, and I put a lot of that on his coach. I digress. You see where I'm going with this. I don't think this season should necessarily be the end-all, be-all indictment on Dwayne Haskins if he doesn't play up to the level that we are hoping that he plays. But that may be what happens, unfortunately, because of the way that the culture that we've kind of allowed to really overtake the NFL now, where everyone expects players to just come in and show out and ball out right away, or else they're a bust. Like that's ridiculous to me. But I hope that Dwayne plays well, and we're not having this discussion again next year. I hope we don't even have to talk about the quarterback position. That's been taken care of, and we can start focusing our attention elsewhere. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. To me, Alex Smith isn't impacting the quarterback position in terms of the depth chart right now. So let's see. Got more super chats, so let's get to those. My man Chris Devers, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it, Chris Devers. Thank you. Chris writes, so back to my question, Tannehill better than Dak? No, and I've already answered that, but we can elaborate on it quickly. Absolutely not. And the fact that he would even fix his lips to say something like that is asinine. All right. Ryan Tannehill, what he did last year was cute, man. It was a great story. I'm happy for him because I remember once upon a time, I thought Ryan Tannehill was going to be here in Washington. I thought we were going to draft him. That 2012 draft where we got Robert Griffin III, I'd done all my homework on Ryan Tannehill. I was prepared to make Ryan Tannehill the 6th pick in the 2012 NFL draft. I had done my homework on him. I felt like he fit the Mike Shanahan scheme. He was athletic. He could run the bootleg. He could throw on the move. Felt like he was a perfect fit for Shanahan. It was going to take a little while. He was a little rough around the edges, but big arm, athletic guy, could do everything that Shanahan would need him to do in his system. I was all in on Ryan Tannehill. And then we made the trade for up to number 2 to get Robert Griffin III, and the rest is history. But to say that Ryan Tannehill is better than Dak Prescott is ridiculous. And I get it. People that want to even make – and first of all, it's not even a debate. It's not even a discussion worth having. But to the people that want to actually engage in that conversation, you know what they're going to bring up. Well, Dak hasn't won in the playoffs. Okay, well, Ryan Tannehill just won 2 games in the playoffs. Good for him. Dak's only won 1 game. I get it. That's cool. But at the end of the day, you can't look me in my eyes with a straight face and tell me that you think Ryan Tannehill is better than Dak Prescott. I mean, just look at their careers. Look at Dak's win percentage. And you could talk to me about, well, the rosters are vastly different, and there's a talented football team in Dallas, not so much in Miami. Okay, I hear you. But if your quarterback is any good, he's going to elevate the level of play of the team and the players around him. And Tannehill never did that. He couldn't stay healthy in Miami. That was another problem, which Dak has had no problems doing in Dallas. And Dak's done nothing but really win in Dallas. And you can say what you want, a bunch of talent around him, got Ezekiel Elliott, got the best offensive line in the game, whatever. He still got to go out and perform, and he's done that. And I talked about last year's season. 8 weeks in, Dak Prescott was a legitimate MVP candidate. I remember after that Detroit win, in which he had to ball out and put up like 30 some odd points because the defense was getting torched, and he had to throw for 4. There was a 2-week stretch there, and I can't remember if it was the game before it or the game after it, but that Detroit game was in there. 2 straight weeks of Dak throwing for over 400 yards. I think the Detroit game was like something like 448 yards passing or some nonsense like that. He was on a tear, and he was legitimately in the MVP discussion. When has Ryan Tannehill ever been remotely close to a MVP discussion? Like, it's not even worth having a debate about. And the fact that he felt like that was even something to talk about. I felt like he was trolling. And at first, I wanted to debate him, but I said, why are you trying to troll me right now? Like, I'm not doing this with you. So to me, that's not even a conversation even worth having. If someone wants to talk about that, then they really either are extremely biased or they just feel like trolling. And if you fall into the trap, look, I'm not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. All right. You're not going to get me. All right. So you got to go troll somebody else, because that's not a discussion even worth having. So thank you for the super chat, Chris Devers. Got another super chat. This one from King of the North. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North, as always, holding me down. Appreciate you, King of the North, who writes, big if, he says, in parentheses, Alex can play, it will be good having an experienced third-string quarterback with Haskins and Allen, a COVID test away from sitting for 14 days. That's also something that we did not bring up, and that's a great point by you, King of the North. We didn't even discuss COVID, and how one COVID test will put you down for 2 games, essentially. And you're absolutely 100% spot on in your assessment that having a healthy Alex Smith is a really good insurance policy that a lot of teams do not have around the league. And so that's a great point, because Dwayne goes down, knock on wood, or we could vice versa it and say Dwayne positive COVID test, Kyle Allen in his 5th NFL snap as a Washington football team member goes down, bam, Alex Smith is in the game. So you're right. Having an experienced third quarterback, probably the most experienced, most decorated third string quarterback in the league, can't hurt. That's for damn sure. So I am with you. And as you said, it's a big if. At this point, even though he's been medically cleared to resume football activities, still hard for me to believe that he should be on the football field. So, like you said, big if, that's a hell of a third string quarterback to have in a really, really good insurance policy. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North. Miguel Reyes, 17, with the super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, Miguel Reyes, 17. Greatly appreciate you. Miguel writes, say Skins land themselves the first pick of the draft and Haskins showed improvement and is the least to blame. Do we draft Lawrence or trade out for the farm? If Dwayne plays well and we still somehow, and that's hard to fathom, because if your quarterback plays well, it's hard for you to end up with the first pick in the draft. It really is. You think about all the teams that have had the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And really, there's a direct correlation to the quarterback position. So it's hard. I mean, think about let's just go back the last 3 drafts, last 3 or 4 drafts. Last year, the Bengals got the number 1 pick. Look at their quarterback situation. It was a mess last year. All right, Jeff Driscoll started a bunch of games for them last year. They were a mess. All right, you had Andy Dalton getting benched. Not Jeff Driscoll. I think he was 2 years ago. They actually let the young boy from NC State play some games and start some games. Andy Dalton ultimately got back in there, which is because they didn't want to go 0-16. But it was a mess. I said all that to say this. They were a mess quarterback-wise. You go to the year before that, Arizona, absolute train wreck. They traded up in the draft to get the kid out of UCLA. Can't even remember his name, which is a shame, because he came in, bunch of fanfare, said that the league messed up and that they were going to regret passing on him. Josh Rosen is his name. And they got rid of him after 1 year. They thought so little of him that they moved on from him after 1 year. And so they were a mess quarterback-wise 2 years ago. 3 years ago, the Browns were the number 1 overall pick. They took Baker Mayfield. They were an absolute train wreck at quarterback the year prior. And so you see where I'm going with this. And we could continue to go on and on and on. But generally, the team with the number 1 pick in the draft, either their quarterback got injured and they've got a franchise guy, but he got injured and that derailed their entire season, or They're just terrible at quarterback. It's hard to have a good. If Dwayne goes out, throws for 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, you're not going to end up with the number 1 pick in the draft. It's impossible. The defense would have to essentially be standing on the field but not moving for us to end up with the number 1. Because you got to go 2-14 or worse to get the number 1 pick in the draft. 3-13 usually, someone else is going to go 3-13. You're not going to be by yourself 3-13. So, you got to be 2-14 or worse to get the number 1 pick in it. We're not going to be 2-14. And I get it. It's a hypothetical that you're posing. But I don't think the two can happen. I don't think the two can coexist. All right. I think one happens, then the other one can't. And so if we had the number 1 pick, Dwayne didn't play well. He either wasn't healthy or he didn't play well. Okay. If Dwayne plays well, then we can't have the number 1 pick. I just don't see it happening. But I will go with your hypothetical. I just needed to say that. But I'll go with your hypothetical. If we get the number 1 pick and Dwayne plays well, you either take the best player available if you can't get out of number 1. Look, next year's draft, if there are quarterback needy teams, and there's always quarterback needy teams every year, at least 3 to 5, you're going to be able to get out of number 1. Trust me. Someone's going to want Lawrence. Someone's going to want Justin Fields. Someone's going to want one of the big three quarterbacks. Okay, someone's going to want Trey Lance. Someone's going to trade for the number 1 pick. All right, trust me, you're going to be able to get out. If quarterback isn't what you desire at number 1, you're going to have a way to get out. So to me, that's a no-brainer. If Dwayne isn't the problem and you feel like you've got the right guy, you trade out of that pick and you literally set yourself up to help speed up the process of building this team up, into a perennial powerhouse that much faster. So, but I can't, as I mentioned, I can't see any situation in which Dwayne is good and we end up with the number 1 pick. It's impossible to me. Simple as that. Anyhow, thank you for the super chat, Miguel Reyes, 17. Got another super chat. This one from CGM87. Thank you for the super chat, CGM87, who writes, name is awful, even temporary. I think we top out at 5-11 if there is a season. We needed wide receivers, tight ends so bad this year and took scrap heap players. I don't agree with the receiver portion of that. I don't think Antonio Gandy Golden is a scrap heap player. Could we have addressed wide receiver a little bit more? Sure. But I felt good. If Harmon were healthy, I felt good about just adding one guy in the draft. I was cool with that. I feel like we're better at receiver than people think. But you're absolutely right about tight end. But this wasn't the year. That was the problem with this year's draft. This was a hard year to need tight end help because there wasn't any, had this been 2019's draft, oh my God, we would have been in tight end oasis. We would have definitely come away with one, if not two, tight ends that could have helped us immediately. But that wasn't what the 2020 draft was all about. It was very, very hit or miss at the tight end position, and it was slim pickings, man. I was disappointed with the crop of tight ends in the draft, and I only felt like there were 2 or 3 at most that could come in and help right away. And they may ultimately be, 1 or 2 other guys that, ultimately produce at a high enough level to either warrant their draft selection or to say, hey, they were underdrafted and undervalued in the draft. But this wasn't a great crop of tight ends. And neither was the free agency, portion of that. There were 1 or 2 guys that were worth having. And then everybody else decided to hold on to the stuff. The Cowboys held on to Blake Jarwin. The Chargers held on to Hunter Henry. There weren't many guys available. A lot of the guys, we thought Kyle Rudolph might shake loose. Vikings said, nah, we're going to hold on to our guy. And all the guys that were worth having, they chose other destinations. And that's fine. it wasn't the best year to be able to upgrade the tight end position, unfortunately. And so they did what they felt like they could do, and we'll see what it amounts to. But 5-11, that's right around, the wheelhouse of where I am. I'm a 6-10 guy. I think we're going to be 6-10. 7-9, not out of the realm of possibility. I could easily see 7-9, but at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to be as bad as people think, and I don't think we took scrap heap players. At tight end, okay, sure, I'll give you that. I'm Richard Rodgers, scrap heap player. Okay, we'll find out if Logan Thomas is any good, but you could consider him a scrap heap player. I'm not going to argue you there. I'm not going to debate you there. They think very highly of Logan Thomas. I am not as high on him as they are. So if you considered him scrap heap player, knock yourself out. All right. Thaddeus Moss didn't get drafted. We know why. He dealt with an injury. They couldn't check him out. So no one wanted to take the risk on him. Is he a scrap heap tight end? We're going to find out. I don't know that answer to that question, but I don't think he's a scrap heap tight end. I don't think he's a true difference-making tight end, but I'm glad he's here, and we're going to get to find out what he brings to the table. At the end of the day, this wasn't the year to upgrade the tight end position, and so we'll see what happens. The name is awful for you, not for me. It is. I mean, look, what were you going to do? What were you going to do? They weren't going to keep it Redskins. All right, you can't change the name overnight. And, a lot has come out since we've spoken about the name last. Ron Rivera has spoken candidly about the name and said, look, this is a long process. The Redskins have issued a statement saying, hey, this is going to be the name for the entire 2020 season, which, remember, I said on Thursday before they issued that statement, if I were them, I would come out and say, hey, this is going to be the name for the entire 2020 season. So don't ask me about the name. We'll have something for you at the end of the season. But for the time being, this is going to be the name. We're rolling with it for 2020. This is what we're going to be. And that would be the smart thing to do so that you don't have to answer these questions. What did they do? I told you, this Bateman guy that they brought in seems like he's got his head screwed on straight and he knows what the hell he's talking about. And everything that he's done since he's set foot in at Redskins Park has been positive and the right move, as far as I'm concerned. So the fact that they said, look, this is going to be the name for the 2020 season, that's the right thing to do. What were they going to do? All right. There wasn't any alternative other than the Washington Football Club, which you know how I feel about that. I'm not going to go on that rant again. The Washington football team was the right move, and you may not like it, but that was what they needed to do. So I get it. You don't like the name. That's cool. It's temporary. As you said, even temporary. It's temporary. So I appreciate the super chat, CGM87. See if we got any more super chats. Not sure if we do. Yep, we got one more. This one is from Terrell Rooks. Thank you for the super chat, Terrell Rooks. Greatly appreciate you. Terrell writes, if Dwayne gets his weight down to 198, 205, do you think he's a dual threat quarterback now after seeing his first season? No, and frankly, I would not want Dwayne down to that kind of weight. That's frail body boy weight. Like, we used to talk about Robert Griffin III because he was 210 pounds, and he looked like a track athlete, and his body was breakable. You don't want your quarterback at 190. That's college football weight. That's high school weight. You don't want him down to 190. Like, no quarterback in the league is playing at 205. I can tell you that right now. In order to play the quarterback position, minimum baseline, you need to be 215. You might come in the league at 210, and you're going to have to build your body up, though. You can't functionally exist in this league at anything less than 215, or else you're going to be in trouble. These are 300-pound guys, 270 that's coming after you. You can't afford to be 205 and expect to survive in this league. It's part of the reason Robert Griffin III was so breakable. He wasn't a big guy. Dwayne, I think, is getting himself into great shape. 220, 215, 220, somewhere in there. I'm all about it. 225, I wouldn't get any lower than 215 if I'm Dwayne. I think he doesn't need to be a dual threat quarterback, but he can move. We saw him moving last year better than we thought he was capable of moving. He was 230 pounds plus pounds last year. So to see him drop the weight that he's dropped, and him get into the shape that he's gotten into, he's going to be an even better athlete than we thought he was at 230, and he was a better athlete than we thought he was after running that 5 flat 40 at the combine. We're like, oh man. And you know what's crazy? Go back and look at that picture of Dwayne Haskins at the combine. He looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Seriously. Like, I didn't realize he was that big because I didn't know what an in-shape Dwayne looked like. So I just thought that's what he looked like. So looking at him now, he looks like an inflated version of himself. Like, whoa, he was really big. Like, there was a lot of extra, flab and whatnot on this guy's frame. No wonder he ran so slow at the combine. And remember, he said after the combine, because he received a lot of criticism, like, man, this guy's not an athlete at all. He went and he reshaped his body, resculpted his body, and that's why we saw the athlete that we did in the preseason and into the regular season, because he shaved off a lot of that body fat. And now he's shaved off even more. So I think he's a much better athlete now than we ever could have imagined. And I think he's good enough to be able to move around and outrun some of these guys now that he wasn't able to outrun, say, even last year when we found out, hey, this guy's a better athlete than we thought. So, you don't want him down near 200 pounds. That's not what you're looking for in the NFL. That's not even what you're looking for at the college game. That's high school weight. You get to your collegiate program at 198, and then they build you up to a 212, 217-pound quarterback. Then you come into the league, and maybe you put on an additional 5 to 7 pounds and end up playing at 223. But nobody's looking for a 205-pound quarterback. So, no, that's not what you're looking for. And I think he's plenty mobile now, and I can't wait to see what the new and improved Dwayne Haskins looks like in terms of his mobility and his ability to maneuver in and out of the pocket. Thank you for the super chat, Terrell Rooks. Got one more super chat. This one is also from CGM87. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, CGM87. Greatly appreciate you. CGM writes, my bad. I was talking FA signings like Latimer and Thomas. Oh, okay, I got you. I think anyone but Minuski, the clown coaching the D, helps our guys develop in Fuller's back. Absolutely. And I had forgot all about Cody Latimer. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I told you when we signed him. Remember, we were live. Remember, I was on live when we signed Cody Latimer, and I didn't even know we had signed him because I wasn't looking at my phone. And someone had asked me, super chatted me and said, hey, what do you think about Cody Latimer? And I was like, man, that's a random ass question. I said it to myself. I didn't say it out loud. That's a random ass question. Why are you asking me that? But, nonetheless, I gave them a full rundown of Cody Latimer, like journeyman wide receiver, never lived up to the hype of being a second round pick from the Denver Broncos out of Indiana. He could run, fast in a straight line, but never really developed in Denver. And he's been around the league. Last time I checked, he had turned himself into a court. Excuse me. He had turned himself into a core special teamer, was playing for the Giants. Don't really see him being a key contributor on offense, but maybe he's a guy that could contribute on special teams. And then everyone started super chatting me, hey, we signed Cody Latimer. And I'm like, well, I don't expect him to make the team. I'm not excited about this signing. Didn't expect him to make the team. And so I get where you're coming from. Cody Latimer, Logan Thomas, I get it. All of these guys don't move the needle, There are a lot of guys that we signed this offseason that didn't move the needle. But again, they're trying to figure out if they can find a diamond in the rough, because I've always said this about the NFL more so than any other sport. Look, baseball, there aren't schemes in baseball. Either you can hit the ball, either you can put bat on ball, or you can't. All right? Either you got a good eye for what's a strike and a ball, or you don't. Either you can play the field or you can't. Like, it's universal in baseball. Either you can or you can't. In basketball, you might fit better on a team, but either you can play defense, either you can rebound, either you can shoot, either you can dribble, or you can't. Like, there are many different things. Like, but basketball isn't complex. Like, you might fit better in a scheme, like with the Rockets. They want to shoot a bunch of threes. You might fit better on their roster because you're a three-point shooter, and they don't require you to play as much defense. You may fit better on this team because you're a 3-and-D guy, all right? And so you play defense, you can shoot the three. There's always value for those guys in the league. But It's universal. Either you can or you can't. In the NFL, unlike any other sport, it's predicated on your fit. Do you fit best in what they're asking you to do? And so when you look at certain players, you say, man, this guy stinks. He can't play. Like, I heard all Lions fans telling me, good luck with J.D. McKissick. He was trash for us. We were expecting so much from J.D. McKissick, and we got nothing. Well, I said, well, look at him in Seattle. They knew how to use him. You tried to turn him into just a running back, and this is a guy that came out of Arkansas State as a receiver. So you needed to use him more as a receiver. You tried to turn him primarily into a running back. You did not maximize him. You did not use him right. And he might have been banged up a little bit too. But that's nor here nor there. It's all about scheme and fit. If you get a guy and he fits what you do, he'll look like a totally different player for you. It's what the Patriots have done for years. Kyle Van Noy looked like trash in Detroit. He wasn't very good with the Lions. They felt like they wasted a second-round pick. He goes to New England, revamps his career. Why? Better fit. They understood what his skill set suggested he should be doing. Now he just got a massive deal to go play for the Miami Dolphins. It's all about fit. And so maybe Logan Thomas comes here and this is a great fit for him. I don't know. We'll see. But that's why I'm not going to kill them for some of these acquisitions. But, you know, what can you do? We'll see if these guys fit or not. But I definitely understand where you are coming from. Thank you for the super chat, CGM87. King of the North. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, King of the North. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, best comp for Dwayne in the NFL. Big Ben, question mark. I think coming out of college, that was the comp everybody had for him. You know, you saw a big-bodied guy, physical in the pocket, someone that could maybe extend plays. But remember, initially, we didn't think he was capable of doing that. Now we've seen that he's capable of doing that. I think there's a lot of those similarities to Big Ben. You know, as far as his ability to extend plays. We saw a lot of Dwayne towards the end of the season extending plays. I'll never forget that throw he made against the Eagles. It ultimately did not count. Was it against the Eagles or who was it? It was the Lions game, I think it was. Early in the season, it did not count. Ultimately ended up being a flag on the play. But him rolling out to his left, throwing across his body 50, 60 yards down the field to, I think it was Terry McLaurin. Unbelievable throw. And it's those types of plays that you say to yourself, that's some Big Ben type stuff. You know, or you watch him later on in the season, you know, manipulating the pocket, extending the play in the red zone, and finding Hale Hinches in the end zone for a touchdown versus the Giants. And you say, okay, he's starting to get it. All right, so you kind of see, you know, some of the Big Ben similarities. You know, I think with this slimmed down version of himself, he might not be, because the whole Big Ben comparison was because of his size. Well, if he's shrunk down a bit, maybe he compares to someone else. And that's why I have to see it. So I think right now, the comparison is still Big Ben. But if I see him this year, I might say to myself, man, he looks more, you know, he looks more Matthew Staffordish, you know, a better athlete, obviously, than Matthew Stafford. But we might be saying, hey, man, he can get out of the pocket when he needs to, because Matthew Stafford's a better athlete than people give him credit for. And you say, oh, man, he could throw from a bunch of different slot angles, and he can extend plays and make things happen. He can bring you from behind like Matthew Stafford. I mean, we could be having a whole totally different conversation about Dwayne after this season. And don't fool yourself. Matthew Stafford, look at the numbers. Check his resume. All right, hey, it hasn't always amounted to wins and playoff wins and things of that nature, but that's not all his fault. Hasn't always had the best talent around him, especially defensively. But check his resume. And remember, just to remind you of this, before Matthew Stafford got injured last year, not only was he playing well, the Lions were one of the better teams in the league. He got injured, and then the season went to hell in the handbasket. So, maybe that's who Dwayne compares to after watching this slimmed down version of him. But we'll see. We'll see. Big Ben is the comparison right now. That's the one that you look at coming into the league, and you say, okay, the quarterback that he probably has the closest body type and stature, arm strength, everything. When you start looking at measurables, outside of height, because Big Ben is a 6'5" guy, Dwayne's a 6'3" guy, but outside of that, that's the thing that you probably look at and say, all right, he's probably most comparable to Big Ben, in terms of a quarterback. So that's gonna do it. I don't see any more super chats. I thank you guys for chopping it up with me for over an hour, close to an hour and a half on a Saturday, man. I know that's asking a lot of you, and I appreciate you guys chopping it up with me to talk Alex Smith and the NFL being officially on schedule to come back to us. Man, does that feel good to be able to say. I am a Washington fan etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington football team pride will never die. My Washington football team pride will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. HTTWFT. Doesn't that roll off the tongue? Not exactly. We're working on that, though. I'm your man, Louis T, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. You know I will. All right. Thank you for all the Born Day love. Once again, all the belated shout outs, everything. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Most importantly, keep you and your family and your loved ones safe. Protect yourself at all times. And we will reconvene at a later date and time. You guys take care. Have a good one.